The Wise Traveler and the Desert of Lost Souls. Once upon a time, in a vast kingdom nestled between rolling hills and endless oceans, there lived a man named Aric. He was known throughout the land as the Wise Traveler. Stories of his adventures had spread far and wide, each tale richer with lessons and truths. His journeys had taken him through dense forests, across treacherous mountains, and even into bustling cities where he had learned the ways of many different people. One day, Aric decided to set out on a new journey. His heart longed for the mysteries that lay beyond the borders of his knowledge. He packed his belongings, taking only what he needed: a simple robe, a flask of water, some dried fruits, and his most precious possession, a book where he recorded all his experiences and learnings. With the rising sun casting a golden hue across the land, he began his trek towards the unknown. After several weeks of travel, Aric arrived at the edge of a vast and desolate desert, known by the locals as the Desert of Lost Souls. It was said that those who entered the desert never returned, lost to the sands that stretched infinitely under the scorching sun. Despite these warnings, Aric was undeterred. For him, danger was not something to fear, but a teacher to learn from. As he ventured deeper into the desert, the heat became more intense, and the landscape grew ever more unforgiving. Days passed with nothing but sand dunes in sight. The sun blazed overhead, a relentless force that seemed to push him down with every step he took. His water supply dwindled, and his body grew weak. Yet his spirit remained unbroken. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Aric stumbled upon an oasis. Its waters glistened under the twilight, surrounded by lush palm trees and flowering plants. Exhausted and parched, he rushed forward, kneeling at the water's edge. As he was about to drink, an old man's voice called out from the shadows, "Drink wisely, traveler, for this oasis is not what it seems," the voice warned. Aric turned to see an elderly man draped in tattered robes, his face lined with the marks of countless years. His eyes, however, sparkled with the wisdom of ages. Aric bowed his head in respect and asked, "Who are you, old man?" "I am the guardian of this oasis," the old man replied. "Many come here seeking refuge, but they fail to understand that survival requires more than mere water." Aric nodded thoughtfully. "Then tell me, guardian, what is it that I truly seek in this desert?" The guardian smiled faintly and motioned for Aric to sit. "You seek knowledge as you always have, but remember, knowledge without wisdom is as treacherous as this desert. Many have come here driven by their desires, yet none have returned because they lack the understanding of what this place truly is." Aric listened intently as the guardian continued, "This desert is a mirror of the soul. Those who enter burdened by greed, fear, or arrogance will find themselves lost in its sands. It tests the heart, not just the body. If you wish to survive, you must confront not just the elements, but the flaws within yourself." The words struck Aric deeply. He had always prided himself on his intellect and knowledge, but had he truly understood his own heart? The guardian's words reminded him of the many people he had met who were driven by their desires, blinded by pride or fear. He realized that his journey through the desert was not just a physical challenge, but an internal one as well. "How do I pass this test, then?" Aric asked, his voice steady but his eyes revealing the storm within his mind. The guardian raised his hand and pointed to the stars now visible in the twilight sky. "Look to the stars, traveler. They have guided countless souls before you. Their light is ancient, steady, and constant. To pass this desert, you must be like the stars, unwavering in your values, humble in your wisdom, and open to the lessons around you." Aric sat in silence for a long while, reflecting on the guardian's words. The sky above grew darker, the stars shining ever more brightly. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply, feeling the cool night air fill his lungs. He thought of the many times he had allowed pride to cloud his judgment, the moments when fear had held him back from making the right choices. He saw his flaws clearly now, as if the desert had peeled away all his pretenses, leaving only his true self. With a renewed sense of clarity, Aric rose to his feet. He looked at the guardian and said, "I understand now. This journey is not just across the desert, but into the depths of my own heart. I will not let fear, pride, or greed guide my steps." The guardian nodded approvingly. "Then drink from the oasis, for you have understood the first lesson of the desert." Aric cupped his hands and took a drink from the oasis. The water was cool and refreshing, filling him with strength. As he drank, he felt a transformation within himself, a shedding of old burdens, and a newfound sense of purpose. When he looked up, the guardian was gone, leaving only the whisper of the wind as a reminder of their encounter. The following days in the desert were still challenging. The sun was relentless, and the sand shifted unpredictably beneath his feet. Yet Aric no longer felt lost. He navigated by the stars at night, finding direction and solace in their steady presence. During the day, he walked with patience, conserving his strength and drinking from the oasis he carried within his spirit. Eventually, Aric reached the other side of the desert. The sight of lush green valleys greeted him, a stark contrast to the endless sands he had left behind. As he stood at the desert's edge, he turned back for one last look. The desert stretched out like a vast golden sea, silent and enigmatic. It had not broken him, but had instead revealed his own strength. Aric continued his journey, now wiser and more humble. He knew that every path he took from that moment on would hold challenges, some as harsh as the desert of lost souls. But he also knew that within himself lay the strength to face them, not with arrogance, but with quiet resolve and the wisdom he had gained. In time, stories of his journey through the desert spread throughout the land. People sought him out, hoping to learn from his experiences, and to each he shared the same wisdom. The true journey is not in the world around you, but in the world within you. Face your fears, shed your pride, and you will find that no desert is too vast, no mountain too high. And so, the wise traveler continued his adventures, carrying with him the lessons of the desert. His story became a legend, a tale that spoke not just of survival, but of the power of self-reflection, humility, and inner strength. And those who heard his story learned that sometimes the greatest battles are fought not with swords or shields, but with the courage to confront one's own heart.